on a hotel in Cascavel. It's countryside of Paraná State.
Great. I know it.
Yeah.
I've been there once. Okay, so welcome very much to this session. We'll begin just the two of us, and maybe if anybody wants to join later, we'll let them in and welcome them for any way.
Cool.
All right. So we are actually having the last online dialogue right now. Oh, hello, Damendra. Nice that you join us.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, hi.
Yeah, I'm very happy you joined me here on a Sunday evening when maybe people have many other things they can do. Maybe we should try, I don't know, can we mute each other while we don't speak? So only the one who speaks at the moment has the microphone on. Yeah, I think that's great for yeah, so we don't have reverb. Great. So we're having, I think, the last session, the 15th online dialogue of the Food Culture Days, Part 2, 2021. I think as far as I heard, all the online dialogues worked really well, and there was a great participation. So, in the name of Food Culture and Margot, our organizer, I would really like to thank everybody who participated because it was a very great, successful event to test the online conversation out and to experiment it. And I think it was very fruitful and inspirational for everybody. So we're just here. We have the honor to close the online dialogues and Food Culture Days 2021 tonight. And I'm very excited to have an inspirational conversation with you guys. Hello, Pat. Welcome.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No worries. Absolutely no worries. I'm so happy we're four people. That's great. Um, what is the question? Sorry. I'm sorry. Pedro is just asking me something. I have to read. Maybe. Oh, yeah. Could we please add our cities to our names? Pedro just asked us if we could put our city name where we're just currently at next to our name. Um, how do we do this, Pedro? Do we click on the 3 points on our little? Yes, okay. Got edit name. Did you all find it? I'll put in Berlin because that's where I'm currently at. So there must be three names, three little dots next to your video. Yeah, great. Cascavel, bem-vinda. And Amanda is in Prazat. Is that correct? And Vevey. Pet is in Vevey. Okay, great. Okay. How do you all feel about, before I say a little thing about how the dialogue should work out, if we all just maybe have a little, very short introduction about ourselves? I can start. I'm in Berlin currently. I'm a documentary filmmaker and philosopher. And I'm very excited to give you a little input later about what I think about food. What about you, Julia?
Yeah, as I said, I'm in Cascavel. I'm based normally in São Paulo. I'm here for some work. I'm an architect. I have a background on construction. I've built some bars and the restaurants and also supermarkets. I always wanted to work in food spaces, so there I was. And I have an artistic practice on watercolor where I illustrate food. Basically, I register day-to-day social relation to food around me. And I cook a lot also, and I really get inspired when I have opportunity to satisfying people desire dishes. And also I love when I can change someone's mind of something they used to dislike.
Um, I just have a little short parenthesis in this type of dialogues we having. We can use a little fruit or any item. I think for our subject, it fits really well if we maybe just run to our kitchen really quick or choose a leaf. That's really nice too. I have some items available like a pepper or a lemon or an avocado, and we use it as a talking stick. So if I want to take the word, I'm going to move this to the center of the screen and move it towards me. So I take the speech to my side, and when I'm done speaking, I will put it back to the center. to close the circle. So now I'm passing on the word to anybody who'd like to introduce themselves and maybe just say very quickly where they're coming from, what they're working on right now, and why they'd like to join us today. Hi, Tessa. I see that you joined us. Again, welcome very much to our dialogue session tonight. Maybe would you like to just introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Here's what I chose, and it's a good introduction for my talking stick. It's a really great book called Notes by Tracy Wan, a Canadian writer. And I am a chef in New York. This is my hometown. And basically, yeah, I understand home cooking is not something that everyone gets to do all the time, and that I think a lot of people feel nervous about it, especially in this last year, just having to do it has been a new experience for everyone. But yeah, I'm a chef and a caterer, and I'm very interested in multi-sensory experiences. So I work a lot with scent, which is why this book is really awesome. Yeah, I'm very interested in how we use all of our senses. So yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm gonna put it back. I'll go next. So I got my Mirinda tomato. I'm Patricia. I got hospitality background, but I'm actually a medical student now, so it's a bit of a change. Still with people, but different kind of environment. And I used to manage different restaurants in London. And I used to work in consulting, hospitality consulting as well. So yeah, I guess my relationship to food is all about just fresh and homemade. That's basically my approach, which is probably also very much given by my parents. So very thankful for that. And so yeah, that's all for now.
All right then. Darmenda, would you also like to say a couple of words about you, or you prefer not to and maybe do it later? All right. Well, I'd like to still say a couple, this is a very short introduction on the type of conversation we might like to have right now. So we would like to focus on being brief and precise, but to speak from the heart. And another great little mantra is we'd like to listen as you like to be heard. Now I'm going to give a little brief topic intro to my thoughts on the subject against homogenization. But then ideally, I'll try to be silent and really pass the word on to you. Are you also having some reverb right now? Yes. Should I maybe try to use headphones? I'll be back in 5 seconds.
I can hear you.
Hmm. Well, because I have no microphone on my headphones, so I guess it cuts off the voice. So now you don't hear me anymore, right?
No, we can hear you now. Yeah, I can. Okay.
Do it without headphones. Great. All right. So, as I said earlier, I'm a documentary filmmaker and philosopher, and I really like to focus on our relationship to objects. I believe cooking is a wonderful experience. No, but this is not working. I'm gonna ask Pedro for the reverb real quick. What can we do? Maybe someone is unmuted. That is, Pedro is suggesting this is why we're having the reverb. Darmendra, could you maybe mute your microphone when you're not speaking?
Can you be a little louder? I'm unable to hear you. Sorry.
No, you could just maybe mute your own microphone when you do not speak, and then always unmute it when you're picking up your speech. Yeah, great. So I think now we don't have the reverb anymore. Awesome, wonderful. Okay, great. Happy when there's solutions to be found. Okay. So as I said, I love to work against like binary systems where we focus on subjects and objects as kind of like antagonists. And I believe cooking, especially cooking at home, is one of these practices where we really overcome a bit this wall we build between subjects and objects. So, in home cooking, where we experience the process of transformation from the primary materials into something we were going to ingest, we do not quite think of the food object as an object of consumption so much anymore because we've developed a whole relationship with this object. We're kind of making kin with food in our home cooking practices. Um, Now, eating out is very different because we go somewhere, we buy something, and we get it ready made. And so we don't quite witness the transformation and the whole multidimensionality of the food object that transforms while being prepared. So I'm sure you all have a lot of experience with this practice I'm talking about, especially engaging in it professionally. Um, but as we like to focus today on how we resist homogenization through home cooking and care, I'd really like to put the focus a bit on how do we experience heterogeneity in our home cooking practices. So, first, kind of like I asked myself as brainstorming about this topic, what happens actually when we cook at home? So, I kind of discerned like three main aspects, at least to my experiences, which is we touch our food sources. We develop a haptic relationship with the object. It's sensorial and actually very sensitive and sensual if we don't want to take that too far. Um, so I'd suggest we all have some sort of vegetable actually with us on the table today. And we could just actually engage in a practice. Yeah, go get one, please. Um, yeah, all get a little vegetable. Because I'd like to invite us to actually keep holding just one, any random food item of primary nature in our hands during this hour. And maybe after this hour, we'll have a little round of sharing our experience of how did it feel to just hold a fruit or a vegetable or whatever it is in our hand for this whole time. Kind of like developing, making a little life experiment on how we develop a central relationship with the food object. All right. Also, it keeps helps me to keep my nervous down a little bit. Like the stress ball. Remember the stress ball in the 90s? Yeah, good. So this is my first and major aspect that is dearest to me to develop this sensorial relationship with the food. Second, we accompany and witness the transformation of food objects, which means as I said earlier, we see their multifaceted being. We discover it. It unfolds in front of our hands, not only our eyes, but it unfolds in front of all of our senses, our nose, our hearing, maybe even, as we cut things and they have different quality of cut and different sounds. We discover their many perspectives, and we bridge the process between the primary matter and the ingestible consumption good. So we really unfold the object and we don't reduce it anymore to an ingestible product. Thus, through this process, we make friends with food. If that doesn't sound too weird to you, but we really develop a relationship where we make kin, we become kin with the object because we spend time with it. We really groom our relationship while cooking. It lasts an hour, maybe sometimes two. And as we all know, cooking takes longer than the time we take for eating and ingestion. Ideally, I heard from good house caring people, they usually say, you should never, preparation shouldn't take longer than, I don't really remember, 300% of the time you take for eating. Maybe the cooks know more about this, on what you, like for the distinction between high cuisine and home cooking, what a good rule there is on the proportion of preparation and eating time. Well, now to just go finish through my thoughts real quick. I believe that home cooking is actually an unlearning process. We unlearn commodification and consumerist attitudes. And we engage in a practice of embodiment, embodied knowledge, because we learn what happens and how we transform the objects, almost like a metamorphosis practice, you know? It's like a ritual. We embody knowledge as we do, because we develop knowledge with our bodies touching the food. So we snuggle, we nestle to the object, we huddle against it. We experience otherness of the items we want to eat later in a very friendly way. So we overcome antagonism. Also, I think we discover a whole nother pleasure, but the pleasure of ingestion and the pleasure of eating while we cook. We really, really discover the whole pleasure of relating, of transforming together, of accompanying the transformation of an item. By this, the item kind of gets animated. We discover its living entity, but also our pleasure expands, because as we start cooking for ourselves and for others, we really understand that the pleasure of eating is a big part in it, but it can be so expanded over the pleasure of experiencing the process. I think I already said this, but I really believe we undo the dualism of eater and food by home cooking, or by cooking in general. It doesn't have to be at home necessarily, it can be in another outdoor environment. But we create a bridge. While cooking, we bridge the subject and the object of food. We overcome the imperative of consumption. And maybe we also heal our traumas with the consumption imperatives. Here I'm thinking of eating disorders, for example, which mostly spins off of a trauma of feeling the obligation to consume and not to have a friendly relationship with the object of consumption. So I somehow feel the practice of cooking is actually a pedagogic, a therapeutic practice, if we may take it that far, where we can heal our traumas with food, or our suspicion with food, suspicion with overconsumption, and develop a personal relationship by developing a personal relationship with food. Also, we obviously train our taste buds. We heterogenize our taste buds against the homogenization of taste that we experience outdoors all the time in industrial eating facilities. We transmit knowledge, intergenerational knowledge. It's not just about the recipe, it's about the practice of passing a recipe on, for example. And we don't compartmentalize anymore. We mix it up. We curdle. So basically, in the kitchen, we create some sort of mestizo culture. We curdle it all up. We mix it. And I'm very interested about this aspect as well, where we mix and we break up binary things. All right, I want to close it here, and I want to just give the word to you now. One last thing, silence is beautiful, and we don't have no pressure to talk fast or to really be getting at each other because we're trying to have a dialogue and not a discussion. If we see discussion in a binary way, I think we can have also a friendly discussion as a dialogue. But anyways, we can take room and time for silences as well.
Well, as I draw a lot of food, I always think about and I really like to draw looking and touching the things and smelling of the food. I hate when I have to draw it from a photo. It doesn't come out the same. So I'm always trying to think, how can I translate this kind of feeling that I have, like the smell, like the humidity of the food, the touch. How can I translate this on my drawings? And I'm not sure if I can do this actually, but there's a cartographic method that they say you should go together with the matter you were studying. In the case, the matter I was drawing, the food, and feel like you're not representing it, and you feel you are together, and then we register it. You not represent, you register. So in the transformation, I've been drawing some fermentation food. So I draw in the beginning like raw, and then how it feels without the skin, and then when I grill it, or don't know, and then how it's going transforming itself, and it's really nice to see how different it is, and be part of this transformation.
I want to jump on a transformation train because I find that very inspiring, and I was more thinking about this kind of external transformation that happens to food, and that brings the food together with the human, which just reminds us that we are the food. And then obviously this transformation continues inside the body, and this whole process of becoming sensitive to the texture and to the smell and to what it does in its primal form actually continues inside the body, and we can feel, of course, as well what impact and how it makes us feel, or also maybe in a positive or maybe less positive way. But this whole like journey of sensitivity and transformation just kind of carries on. It's almost like it's the starting point of something that's just cyclical.
Hi. I was also thinking about transformation and about what you were saying about like becoming friends with the primary material and like homogeneity of like if I showed this to most people, they would know it's a lime. Sometimes, yeah, when you go and you eat it like in a restaurant or something, a lime doesn't look like a lime anymore. They cut it apart. They only use part of it, you know. So when you become its buddy and you're actually working with it, you know that, hey, I took the peel off. Why did I do that? Or this is only a lime juice, and, you know, or this is a lime peel. So you actually, you are, you know, when you hang out with a friend and you see that, oh, here they are in like business mode or whatever, you know that sometimes they're in like silly mode, and that's not the whole lime that's hanging out right now. So that was funny when you were talking about like personifying the food object. I thought that was super interesting, and becoming more intimate with its whole thing. Because we don't, and you know, you can go to one restaurant and a lime peel will look one way, like straight, and in another, you know, restaurant it might look curly. So yeah, that's also another way that you can see that it can be different forms and not so homogeneous. Okay. Boop.
Yeah. So I'm like a follower of agriculture, and I'm interested in fields, agrarian fields and my practice basically goes like as a process of unlearning, where I hold the agricultural fields as a site of learning. And the idea of food that grows in my experience through visiting the farmers, their stories in North India and Northeast India, like it's a process of manual toil, and it's more of like an relationship between the field and the human body. It's no more like an product or something like that. It's more about like toil, need, and hunger. And what happens when we take the idea of kitchen as modern architectural form from the food. And because we have that kind of like, you know, lifestyle where like there is still no modern idea of kitchen is there, like in many interior villages in India. And I feel that that's very, very caring, because we have also a lot of traditions and rituals where people go directly into the field and they perform eating. And I feel that that's a very direct relationship, and it also leads to a lot of care possibilities that I think the care is most important action of now in the situation of pandemic, and how it revolves around the idea of food. And so my understanding of food is like not grown from the kitchen or a restaurant. It grown from the field, in relationship with the other people, toil, their needs, and yeah. Thank you.
Of what you just said, Dharmendra, I was thinking when you were talking, Lea, about this factor of control when you actually cook something, and which you obviously don't have when it comes from the field, because I mean there is maybe, you know, part of maybe taking something apart or something like a more relationship with the hands, or maybe a bit different in terms of senses, but if we think about a kitchen, at least where I live, it's you got utensils and all sorts of things that are going to transform, and that might come with a certain set of expectations as well of what it might taste like or look like, and there's this kind of control. But actually, it hardly ever comes out as we think, so it's always going to taste different. And I guess that's also similar when you pick up something in a field. It's you expect something because you learned that something tastes a certain way, and depending maybe on rain or season or whatever, it's always going to be different. So there's this factor of something that can't be actually completely bridged in or controlled, and there's always a factor of surprise and letting go in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like whatever I'm talking is like it's all about from my experience and my memory of childhood in villages. I was born in Indian village, a very interior village, and I spent my childhood there, like picking different kind of food materials from the fields, from the tree, and different kind of like agrarian situations, and that's really informed the idea of food and how we basically harvest, collect, care, and the idea of modern kitchen basically we have like different kind of um, notions of kitchens. It's not it's more of like collective cooking and sharing is also there, and where like you have like there is a very mobile way of kitchen concept in the villages, and a very temporal kitchen concept where like you carry your food and carry some stuffs and then cook something on the way and then eat and then move. So that kind of things are also there. Like so, I think uh, uh, whatever like I'm saying is directly from my own experience and memory. But yeah, absolutely right. Whatever you said.
Also, Damindo, if I'm understanding you right, you're also pointing out that not everybody has access to a kitchen. I mean, maybe if we narrow the subject down to the experience of resistance to against homogenization, to narrow it down to only kitchen work and our luxurious procedures we do in kitchens, maybe we're narrowing it down a little bit too much and we're forgetting about the hegemonic aspect of who has access to a kitchen and who has not. So maybe our opening questions would need to be opened up a little bit. Home cooking and care, I think we're forgetting a little bit the aspect of class in this. And maybe we can think this in a little bit. Let's include this about also with our experience of the pandemic of this last 1 year, where literally the experiences of how we experience lockdown have been fundamentally differing from each other. Really, maybe also depending on how many square meters we have to our kitchens. Yeah, just this is a little thought.
Yeah, I was thinking about the theme before we meet, and I thought about the how home cooking is about first of all about supply, about where you buy or you get your food, and this is the big part about the homogenic thing, how we are restricted to the offer, and from point of view, with a very privileged point of view, where I can normally can buy in a high developed neighborhood in São Paulo, where I can buy organic or can buy a variety of food. I can talk about this with some friends. Normally I say, oh, you should cook home. I can give you a hand. I can like give you support about how you buy it, because when you buy it right, it gets really easier or better experience of cooking at home. Also about instruments you have. If you don't have a good knife or some right tools, you won't get a good experience as well. And so this is about most of the time about planning, about what you're gonna do and when, and also about sharing. I think it's about if you have the opportunity to share it and to have this experience with some loved one. It's most enjoyable. It's more enjoyable than just it.
Yeah, I agree that, I mean, to me, if I think about food, it's a social experience. So, I mean, I take the example, I live currently by myself, but I would never cook or approach food the same way, which is maybe for some people think it's sad, if I have to cook for myself or if I'm gonna have lots of people around me. And I find this question of supply really interesting because I think it's also this, you know, like, of course, one subject is the labels, because, you know, we speak organic, or, I mean, depending on countries, there's all sorts of different labels, and it's really easy to classify things. But then again, I mean, I think about what Dharmendra was saying, and it's like, my dream would be to just have things off the field, you know, without having to pick something in a supermarket that is labeled in a certain way. And again, it comes down to how do we even judge what's actually, you know, good or better or whatever. I mean, how do you classify food in terms of not processed food, obviously, but just even say, well, this tomato is better than this one?
And also, like, if we narrow it down to cooking alone, how much are we missing out if we didn't grow also? I mean, how much of the sensorial potential are we actually missing if we did not like touch it on the field already? If we're not going on the field, can we actually, I guess, maybe work with imagination at home enough to kind of like catch up with all the missing development and transformation we've already lost by just buying this item?
Yeah, sure. We miss a lot since the how it grows, like the leaves or some parts of the vegetable you cannot see, and sometimes you can have like a this in a market, in a street market. You get closer to it, but it's completely different how you get it from supermarket. Sometimes like carrots with leaves and stuff.
I mean, in a way, I was just thinking we also start off as a disadvantaged position, because if we want to overcome the binary kind of a debilitation of food that we're witnessing, of like turning it into just processed goods and like consumable objects. Um, when we start cooking, we're already starting off at the split. The produce has already been cut. We already bought it. It's already been disconnected from its source. So in our embodied cooking practice, we start disadvantagedly. Like we have to maybe reimagine a connection to the object that has already been cut and undermined by, I guess, by huge industrial procedures that have preceded our home cooking session, which is really at the last step on the line.
Yeah, and I mean, it just came to my mind. But if I think about home cooking or just eating in general as well, I mean, of course, there's a geographical component, but there's also so many habits linked to it. And I mean, if I look in whether it's me or people around me, we tend to eat always the same. But it's not because we are cultivating our garden and that's just all that grows. It's just because it's kind of like a conditioning. Maybe it is external, but it's also something we put on ourselves. And it kind of is, yeah, it's kind of destroying this variety or this opening to look at, well, a vegetable or any other item in a different way.
Yeah, I think that it's also like very important for me in understanding the idea of food as a very important ingredient. That to talk about the relationship between the way a field is cultivated and how non-human, like for example the cattle and oxen in the field, and how a farmer talks with the oxen while plowing the field, and what is that language. And I think the language is also becomes very important part, like the communication between the non-human and the human, which results the food market, the kitchen, and like, so I think that also is a very important like an experience of mine, where I met a lot of farmers in the fields, and they talk about the different kind of sign and symbolic languages that they use the utterings to converse with the oxen, and to take turn, go straight, to stop, to move fast. And these things are also like very important in construction of the idea of the food. And I find it really like very interesting thing. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question for you, Dharmendra. Regarding that, have you found that there's a lot of like, does each farmer have a different way of kind of working with their cattle and stuff? Like, you mentioned the language that they use, is it pretty homogeneous, or would you say like everybody has their own little way that they talk?
It also like depends in terms of like region and what kind of language people speak there. And suppose in North India, like in Bhojpuri language, like they have certain kind of commonalities in communicating with the cattle. And in Northeast India, in Assamese language, like they have a different kind of use of utterings, and also like, because I think it's very much cultural. And so not so specific like from one cultural region, but India has like so many cultural pockets, and also in terms of language. So it differs in terms of like where what language is being spoken. And but in Bhojpur region from where I come, uh, yeah, I have a conversation with a lot of farmers where like they uses the same symbols and signs, different farmers. Yeah.
I mean, when we talk about words or how food is kind of watered with words, so I don't know how we can express this. Also, just the way we speak about food. I mean, I find everyone has their own way of expressing, whether it's to say, I'm going to have a quick lunch. There's always, I mean, where I live, I feel like everything is quick or fast or small and it's like, why does it have to be small or quick or fast? And it's like these habits of how you just you would mention some ingredients but not the others. So it's like the words you use are in cultivating, but also I feel like in the preparation and in the eating or then consumption of food, it's so important.
Yeah, what what the Medra said about the plantations, it makes me remind about people in the countryside, like that grow their own food or prepare their own food for very long time, and sometimes they seems to have this really tight relation to this special food. It's almost like they have like they could talk with this. They have this different relation because they have been together for so many years, and reminds me also like nature, natural medicine, like some I've know a lady in the countryside that she could have a tea for everything, or like to cure you from this and that, and she couldn't really explain how she knows that, how she has all this knowledge. It's not only from one to another, but like a kind of special gift or something. And another thing about that is, I think when you feel like eating something, when you really have the desire of something, normally I think it's you need this kind of nutrition or something, and I think it's a kind of a language we have together with the food.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I believe nothing is separate. So there is this communication, and we kind of make space or choose to listen to it or to go get into this communication or not to, and just be distracted by everything else. Um,
Yeah, I really like these last inputs here. Because it really ties together to, I think, what Pat said at the very beginning, that the food travels on inside the body, like the transformation continues. Was that Pat? Am I remembering it right? Yes. How we should think of the transformation and the whole process and the kinship, to not make it stop with the ingestion, because that's actually kind of reproducing the binary as well, but to just take the ingestion along with us and let the food continue its journey of transformation within. Uh, and then I guess it's really to see this whole thing, this, let's call it this, we could call it a nutrient transaction, right? And like technological science, we would have a transactional approach on the exchange of nutrients But here, to really focus on the exchange aspect of it and to see it as a language, as a form of communication, the passing of nutrients. I really like this thought about the language aspect. How also, the closer we get to the process of growing food, of farming, of relating to farm animals, to really engage in a practice. My only experience is to having like milked goats for a couple of months. Once at a goat farm, I worked with goats, but else, and maybe picking fruits a lot too. Um, there's really like a field of communication that you have no idea of prior when you grow up, let's say in a city. Um, and then it unfolds suddenly a whole field of in betweens of new forms of language that you can like find. And that I find very, very fascinating. And you can't explain it anymore in a verbal system. You talked about knowledge, right? Knowledge that you cannot translate in words anymore, but it's really about this field that becomes vaster and vaster the more you engage in it. The field between you and the ox, or the field between you and the goat, or the vegetables in fruit culturing, for example. Yeah, just oh, that's not the middle.
Yeah, I mean, in this journey of transaction or of transformation, both together, it's, I mean, if we look even in the body on a cellular level, that's exactly what happens. I mean, one thing gets in and something else goes out, and they balance each other. And even what Julia, you were saying about natural medicine, I mean, often it's because what the external medicine, most of the things we already produce, and we also produce inside the body thanks to what we eat. So it's really this kind of constant, like everything is just linked.
Yeah, I think we're on a train here where we're starting to understand that production and ingestion doesn't have to be consumerist at all, because production is a part of exchange. If we think it more as like a moment in a transformative process, production always occurs in a way that it's not exploitative somehow. And I believe, let's say, in industrialized urban environments, uh, industrial nations, we really experience this vast phenomenon of people disconnecting from food. And like the disconnect is transforming into pathologies of all sorts. There's people getting obsessed with culinary cultures also. I find that somewhat of maybe even an adverse reaction also, this obsession with fancies, as opposed to maybe the obsession with having as little as possible and as fast and quick and small bites as possible. But it's also coming from a big disconnect, from us not having a actual central relationship anymore, communicative relationship anymore.
And I mean, to me, it just draws this parallel with the relationship we have with our own body, and how this disconnection that we have with these external bodies are actually sometimes quite revealing about how we relate to our own body, whether it's in nourishment, even just on what we put on our skin, or how we touch ourselves or other people, or how we use our senses. And it's quite, yeah, I find this parallel quite, yeah, revealing.
Yeah, and I think this connection came from like it's about time. It's about how big organizations works everything about to make us to think food. We are having more time if we eat industrialized food or if we call on iFood or something. And actually, I think we have to break this stigma because sometimes I can cook this and eat really faster than if I call something to it to deliver it here, and it's gonna be more nutrition and better experience for sure.
I think there's really a big line also whether we live in a rural environment or in an urban environment. Because I think we could, over this last year, we could, in urban environments, I mean, I live in Berlin, uh, we could really witness how the whole home cooking sector started to being co-opted and actually being discovered as a market field, a market battlefield. So we started to have all these uh, attempts of like reconquering the home cooking space by big enterprises and ventures, and how to re-homogenize the home cooking space, actually how to get in our kitchens and make sure marketing and commercialization and commodification continues in our private kitchens. I would like to maybe take this dialogue to a little end by showing you a very short video. It's a commercial by a little startup from Frankfurt who created this super cool magic cutting board that actually compartmentalize all the single food items. So you please don't make your cutting board too dirty and you keep all the items separate. So this is two guys. I find that also very interesting because we didn't really reach that into this subject so much. But there is a little bit of a feminist potential into curdling and mestizo culture and mixing things up and transcending binary systems. And so here's two guys from Frankfurt who are trying to recompartmentalize the home cooking kitchen. I'm going to play this. It's really short. There's German titles, so I'm going to speak in English to translate them when as they come up. 1 second. I'm going to set it up. Hold on. 1 second. I got it almost. I have to try again. Hopla. How do I do this? 1 second. One moment of patience, please. I gotta minimize the screen first. Now I'm making this small. And I'm right back with you. Now I want to share my screen. How can I share my screen again? Oi. 1 second. Share. Where's the share button? I want to share it without going into. Maybe I'm just gonna hold on. I'm very sorry for this. Yes, I want to share the screen. Got it set up. Oh. Yes. I found it. Share screen, share audio, and entire screen window. Okay, ready to go. Work, cut and waste, ingredients, recipes, music, cuts for intensive aromas, for sensitive aromas, and for fast cuts in between, for liquids, we invented the cutting board, Frankfurter board. Okay. So this was a little introduction. Could you hear my voice? Great. Okay. I would just maybe like to hear your quick thoughts on this. And if you like to close it up with little contributions from your side, and then we will bring it to an end because we already concluded the hour. It was so fast.
I don't think I would use it. I don't know. It just seems so fake. It's like, where is the where is the taste in this? It's all gonna taste like plastic. No, but I mean, I don't know. There's something very unnatural in the process, and I'm just thinking of this guy cutting his stuff and having to think where he puts everything, and then he takes the wrong board, and it's not thinking about the food anymore. It's just distracting completely of what he's actually doing. It's kind of this artifact that's just taking all the space, not just physically, but also mentally.
Yeah, I didn't mean to close it with this on a too pessimistic note. I just mean to invite us, we got to stay vigilant because the kitchen is trying to be conquered. They're trying to homogenize the kitchen and to compartmentalize it. And I found that just very hilarious in a way. Now, unfortunately, our time has run up. I really enjoyed this conversation very much. We had the honor to close Food Culture Days, Part 2, 2021, with the 15th online dialogue tonight. I'm very happy you joined me on this Sunday evening. Um, and I'd love to stay in touch actually. So I'm putting my email in our chat. If you like to do the same, I'd be very happy. I actually have a beautiful text of American Mexican philosopher Maria Lugones that I would like to share with you because it would be the counter opponent text to the video we just saw, because she makes philosophy out of her experience, her embodied experience of making mayonesa, and she calls it the curdling experience with her mestizo mother. And it's a great text, 20 pages of mayonnaise philosophy of how to mix up binary systems in the kitchen of mestizo culture. So I'd like to send that to you. And I wish you a wonderful evening. And if you'd like to say one last word or anything, the space is to you now. I say goodbye.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here with you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good week to start coming up. Ciao.
Thank you so much, everyone. Eat always from the field.
And I have to say, I'm so excited. We just joined live from completely, like, actually different, well, three different continents I see here, and this is exciting to be live with so many different angles and perspectives from different places. If we ever happen to travel, let's be in touch to maybe visit our different environments we've just been at. Darmendo, I'd be excited to learn more about your farm anthropologic work and the cooking ladies, the drawing ladies. I'm very stoked about this get together. All right, goodbye. Have a great evening. And thank you for Food Culture Days for this opportunity. Bye.